Thanks, Marco. Good morning, everybody. I'm Patrick Meininger from Adconion. And I would like to share with you in the next 15 minutes a little bit about the Adconion story on what we did since we started in early 2005, and also discuss some of the key learnings that we were able to obtain along the way. So, looking at Adconion, the way we are today, we really, view ourselves as a diversified online media company. We are the largest independent audience and content network as we speak today. And, looking, just give you a little bit of flavor on who's behind us and what we are about. So the company was founded in 2005 in Munich, Germany. We have today 16 offices in 7 countries on 3 continents. Reaching with our advertising on a monthly basis north of 300 million unique users. In terms of people, we are close to 300 people. They're off a third in sales, and we are backed by Index in Wellington. And are very fortunate to have those backers behind us. And in terms of stage, we're profitable, we're growing, we're cash flow positive. I'll come back to this in a minute, but overall things are good, and we are very excited about the future. Looking at our business, and it's really about 4 main buckets that you see when you look at Adconion. First and foremost, it's the Adconion Audience Network. We are the largest independent global audience network. Being independent and being global are some of our key USPs that differentiate us from competition and which allowed us to grow very substantially, not only until last year, but even throughout the nuclear winter of advertising, as some people like to say, in 2009. The second pillar of Adconion is our direct marketing unit called Frontline Direct. It provides leading targeted direct marketing solutions to advertisers and agencies, primarily via email advertising, but also on the display side. The third major area is an area that we feel very strong about, and is also an area that you might have read about us in the most recent days, is video advertising on the internet. We are a huge believer of video being the next big thing in terms of real advertising dollars being spent online. We started our video offering about a year ago. We saw significant growth throughout this year despite the very unfavorable economic environment. And about a week ago, we announced that we acquired certain assets of a company called Juiced that started out to be a web TV company. And this will be a very important building block in our efforts to provide advertisers with a sound and comprehensive advertising solution to bring their advertising campaigns online. Last but not least, we also have an in-house creative studio, which is more of an enabling factor to kick off video advertising as long as agencies are not fully capable of doing so. But looking at this, so 3 main pillars: audience targeting, and in the display space, frontline and direct response marketing, and video marketing are really the 3 main areas of Adconion. What is an ad network? Some of you might ask. So, at the end of the day, we are an intermediary between those who seek monetization of their advertising inventory, and which they are not capable of monetizing it themselves, and the advertisers and agencies who have certain campaign objectives and seek specific audiences over the internet. And we are basically the matchmaker in between, but we are not only a matchmaker but brokering it. We optimize which campaign we show to which consumer on which piece of inventory at what point of time, and how often we're going to show this particular campaign to a certain consumer in order to maximize the overall performance of all the campaigns in the network. And we do not only do this in terms of on a risk-free brokerage basis. We actually take principal risk by acquiring certain inventory space, which then allows us to monetize it even better down the road. Looking at what Adconion stands for and the way how we also look at our business, I would like you to remember 3 things. The first pillar on what we do is really our cross-channel approach. So we do focus on display advertising, video advertising, and email advertising at the same time, which allows us to provide advertising agencies with a much broader product portfolio, and which also does allow us to target consumers across the internet in a much more, in a much better way. The second element, and this is sometimes a little bit unusual for a media company, we are big believers in technology. Technology does not only allow us to run our business, it also enables us to generate much higher returns in the way we run our business due to our ability to take principal risk on the inventory side and better monetize it down the road with advertisers and agencies. So we are fully independent from third-party technology solutions, which only very few ad networks or very few players in the online advertising space are. Last but not least, while we are strong believers in technology, we're also a big believer in salesmanship. And we maintain what we call Tier 1 agency sales force that walks in and out of the largest online agencies in order to attract large budgets that then get deployed and distributed over via our network. So this approach basically allowed us to generate approximately 100 million euros in revenues within 5 years of existence, which I believe is an interesting number. And when we look out in our future, and I already mentioned that we are big believers in video, the way we look at what we do is really right now, we're all about delivering the right advertising to the right user at the right point in time. We believe that we would like to expand this model on beyond the advertising space, and we believe that the way consumers consume content will slightly change. We are big believers in defragmentation. We don't believe portals eat the entire lunch, and we believe if you can target the right content to the right consumer wherever they are, independent of the site they're currently visiting, this is a very compelling value proposition, and this is something we're definitely going to explore in the very near future. We already started doing this, particularly in the US. We see great traction there from the agency and from the advertiser side, and see incredible engagement rates, meaning that people do appreciate if you do not only present them with advertising, but also present them with the relevant content for them. I know a lot of people in this room have a kind of banking background, so I thought you have some appetite for numbers, and here they are. Adconion, as I said, we were founded in early 2005 in Munich, and we're going to reach this year about 100 million euros in revenue, which means that we were able to significantly outgrow the market from 2008 to 2009. If you believe what analysts have to say, the word is out that the overall online advertising market, at least in the US, is going to, flat at best this year. Most likely it's going to slightly shrinking. And, countering this trend, we were able to grow our business north of 50% from last year to this year. So that's something, we haven't necessarily expected when we walked into 2009, which I'm sure all of you remember last fall when Lehman crashed. I think Marco remembers it particularly well. And there was writing on the wall, the whole advertising is going to go away, advertisers are no longer spending. So there was a lot of ambiguity going into 2009, and we are excited to see that we came out of this crisis much stronger than we walked into the crisis. In terms of geographic presence, I mentioned we have a very broad international footprint in terms of the offices that we maintain. But it's not only about opening up offices and deploying staff. At the end of the day, it's about generating revenues. And I guess we can pride ourselves to be one of the very few players who have a truly globally diversified revenue mix in the online advertising space. So you see in the US, Australia, all over Europe, all of those markets are growing. All of these markets are profitable. So, we're excited to, go into 2010 where we believe that we can build upon the momentum that we've generated so far and extend our footprint even further. So, beyond, just sharing with you a little bit the background of Adconion and where we are today, Marco asked me to also share some key insights that we were able to gain along the way. I guess the first point, and it was already mentioned earlier today, is really about the team. I mean, if you want to build a great company, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you consider joining a great company, or whether you're an investor in a company, we are strong believers it's all about the executive team, it's all about the management. But you want to make sure it's not only about the CEO. Sometimes people are a little bit, from our perspective, overly focused on just one person, and obviously it helps if you have a superstar in your ranks. But at the end of the day, you want to have a very balanced team that is not all that complements each other very nicely. And I believe this is something, our founder and CEO has done very nicely by assembling a team that complements each other and allows him to grow the business across the globe. The saying is, when we are asked why is Adconion performing extraordinarily well in a hyper-competitive market that is, as I just mentioned, in this year, more shrinking than growing. And I guess part of the reason is because we combine American salesmanship with German efficiency. So if you look in our executive team, you'll see half of them are Germans, half of them are Americans. And not surprisingly, most sales positions are run by Americans. And this is a real good combination of bringing drive, but at the same time also a certain level of discipline to the company. And it really helps if you want to run an organization that spans across 7 countries in many different time zones, because it creates a certain level of complexity. And just bringing together these different DNAs in a very enriching way helped a lot. I think you're going to hear today a lot about the way companies expanded. And I guess one thing that I'd like to stress, it's about do expansion in a smart way. There is no general right or wrong how you do it. I believe it always depends. But looking at ourselves, we have grown significantly organically, opened up all the markets ourselves. We developed our own technology platform. We didn't buy it. But in contrary, we bought our way into performance marketing, and we also acquired certain assets, namely Juiced, that we believe will enrich our product offering and provide advertisers with a broader product portfolio. Obviously, there's also a third way to go about growing the business, about expansion. That's about partnering. Some of you might have read that we partnered about 8 days ago with Goldbach Media Group, which is one of the largest online media players in Eastern Europe. And by partnering with them and allowing them to leverage our technology and our expertise in performance marketing, we'll be able to address the Eastern European market in a very cost-efficient way, while still, generating significant, what we believe, bottom-line contribution. A general notion about online advertising is often, there are many players trying to make the easy money. As you all know, it's usually not that easy. But even if you found a very compelling offering and you believe have the magic key in your hands in order to drive revenues and drive margins, you want to make sure you don't get greedy. You want to have good margins, you want to have healthy margins, you want to have a strong bottom line profitability in your own company, but you always want to make sure that your partners appreciate what you do, even if they would have the visibility to take a look at the numbers and they don't feel cheated because you take advantage of them. Numbers don't lie, obviously, very obvious. But I guess this goes back a little bit to the American salesmanship and German efficiency. We are a super big believer in looking at our metrics, looking at our number, and this applies on a country level as well as on a salesperson level. So we look on a monthly basis very carefully what is this specific salesperson expected to generate, depending on his expertise and when he or she joined the company. And if the results are not the way they're supposed to be, we take action. And we just do the same on a country level. So, it's always easy to, come up with many good reasons why a certain business, the numbers are not the way they're supposed to be. And, I mean, you all have heard the stories. And we obviously will listen very carefully, but at the end of the day, we need to make sure that each and every of our units is contributing to the profitability of the overall group. And that's something we are big believers in. I think I mentioned earlier, we have been growing very successfully through what we call a period of hypergrowth. 2006, 07, 08, it was all about growth, it was all about top-line expansion, and we did it well, I guess. But when last fall, the writing was on the wall that the online advertising industry is very different, we also had to take severe measures in order to make sure that we don't fall off the cliff. While it's great if you're growing, if you're not profitable, that's an issue, especially in a time of uncertainty where you don't know exactly where the market is going. So last fall we decided to let 20% of our staff go, which was following this time of hypergrowth, a somewhat drastic decision, but it proved out to be exactly right. And coming out of this, what the CEO of WPP called the nuclear winter of advertising, we believe we're a much stronger company than we were before. Last but not least, I guess finding and attracting the right investors is super critical. You want to seek investors who understand your space, who appreciate what you do, who can add true value, and probably, as importantly, you need to make sure that interests are truly aligned. We're all in here for the big swing. We're all in here to make money together. So you want to make sure that no party can take advantage of the other. Many of you have seen many term sheet and VC contracts, so sometimes this is reflected better, sometimes not as good. We are a big believer, and we all sitting in one boat, and so we sink together, we swim together, and looking at where we are today, I believe we swim. Yeah, look forward to what 2010 and the future has to bring. Thanks.